Howdy. Couldn't make it to soccer today because I wasn't feeling good enough, so I'll make a video instead. This one is in relationship to a number of things, but in particular I'm going to talk about the occult and such. I've been researching these sorts of topics for 10 years, and in the truth movement, I think because of some ignorance in certain avenues, there's a lot of either atheists, which is fine, and a lot of Christians, which is fine. I support both of those in their own way. I used to be strongly atheistic up until about 10 years ago, and then after that I've taken on more esoteric Christian teachings. So I understand both of those viewpoints, I think, fairly well. I'm certainly not an expert in either of them, really, but I'm pretty good with atheism, but Christianity, there's still lots of ins and outs I don't know. But people like Father Thomas Keating I take very seriously. Anyway, so I've been thinking about things like Freemasonry, and again, it's demonized, I think rightfully so. My perspective on it is this, and I'd like to hear feedback from you. It's roughly, I think what might have happened is that there's really strong evidence from my research that Freemasonry was very much present in the beginning of America. And you can see this with a lot of the architecture, things like the receiving of the Statue of Liberty, how the money design, but that was later. I forget when the Pentagon, I'm not American, so there's lots I don't know about structural design things and so forth, but over the period, like in a lot of these people like Jefferson and so forth, I think have talked about being Freemasons. So anyways, I feel confident that there were in the beginnings Freemasonry, but I also feel confident that these people had good intentions. Think about what a lot of them went through to bring in what they brought. So namely, the notions of freedom, equality, and liberty-ish, those sorts of notions are really rebellious in relationship to what was going on in Europe. And, they could have easily given into banking interests. So to me, there's really no question, when you do some research on it, that these people had good intentions in the beginning. And their lives were fought, in a sense, against, depravity of mind and spirit, as it were. But I think what has happened, this is just what I've been coming to recently, is that with Nazi Germany, a lot of the scientists were really cutting-edge people, and some of them have been known to have escaped Nazi Germany just after the war and then fled to Argentina. And a lot of them, Jim Marrs talks about this in one of his books, and I think he backs it up pretty well with some documentation, took blueprints of their secret research into Argentina, and then, had formed relationships with, NASA and so forth. And due to the fact that they were, mystically inclined, a lot of them, they got court in sort of that domain too, and it's very close, I believe. I believe a lot of the tenets are very, very close to Freemasonry with Nazism. And there's a lot of secret data, I think, very well, that could be presented in there. Now, what I'm thinking is the primary difference is this sort of moral relativism that crept in And if you don't know what moral relativism is, it's the idea that because there are no sort of absolutes that you can draw on, in the postmodern world, we can't say for certain, this is a knife, because in another sense it's not, right? It's made up of these atoms, subatomic particles that are in a sense more real than the knife, or whatever you might say. You might say that. I'd say they're equally real, but anyways, what they can draw on is saying that there's no absolutes, so that if I say, okay, Hitler's bad, well, they can say, well, what about his cultural upbringing, right? His parents did such and such, so is he really bad, or is it more just, his inheritance? And so, with postmodernism, you can slide into this relativism where nothing is better or worse than anything else. And this, I think, was adopted because, again, this is in a sense a movement upwards in consciousness, in a twisted way, sort of. Because strict rationalism, holds sort of that, you can have sort of concretes. Like, again, going back to the atom, there's sort of, even though it might have these subatomic particles, there's this central atom that you can point to. Whereas with postmodernism, in the mental realm of sort of quantum physics, you can say, no, not even that. It's both a wave and a particle simultaneously, and it's this paradox. And so when you move into moral relativism, you can hold it two ways. You can hold it, okay, there's this sort of absolute relativism that is, we are all one, and then simultaneously, I must take my own actions seriously, they matter. And so there's this paradox being played out. And so we see this, I think, in what was going on in the Freemasonry at the time, I'd say the 1950s or even before, when they slowly adopted sort of these Nazi-esque moral principles where nothing's better and worse, which again fit fairly well in general with the mystical inclinations, except for it drastically was in opposition to what the Founding Fathers of America actually were fighting for, which was radical liberty and peace for the people. And this was going against that, for self-interest. So, there's, I'm sure, lots more to this, but I thought this was enough of a perspective to offer. Blessings.